Hey friends, Peggy Hall back with you from thehealthyamerican.org. Well, it happened. Trump has nominated Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to head up Health and Human Services. So in this video, we actually are going to talk about Trump's tweet. We're going to look at some of the responses on Twitter, which are very amusing. And then I want to talk exactly about how cabinet appointees are confirmed by the Senate and how the Senate is attempting to do a runaround. And then I want to finish up. And finally, I want to hear from you. What do you think will happen next? And I'll close out with some of my own comments about what we need to remain vigilant about. All right, before we do any of that, let me thank the sponsor of our video. This is a new sponsor to the show, and I hope that you will check this out. You can go to PeggyAgeFix.com. And, you know, nobody really feels like they're getting older until they suddenly do. Maybe you have noticed that your energy is fading faster than it used to, or that the vitality that you once had now feels more distant. That's why it's so important to be proactive about your health. Your body needs the right nutrients to help you feel as young as you do. And this is why Dr. Greg Eckel, you can see him here in this free video that he created for you over at PeggyAgeFix.com. He's a specialist in regenerative, let me pronounce that correctly. He's a specialist in regenerative health for almost 25 years, and he is helping people regain their energy and vitality. He has a breakthrough through a product called Advanced Greens Plus. It's a simple, convenient way for you to get the vital nutrients of over 50 different fruits, vegetables, and superfoods into your body so you can support healthy aging in a way that fits into your day. Most of those green drinks out there can taste pretty terrible. That bitter, earthy taste that makes you want to hold your nose. But Advanced Greens Plus sets a new standard in both nutrition and taste. People are actually excited to drink it each day because it's that good and it's making a real difference in their lives. So one of the customers here, Peter, says, I take one scoop early in the morning and I'm definitely more energized for my morning walk. I used to just walk around the block and now I can go for an hour in the park, an hour walk in the park. And Jeff says, this is by far the best greens drink I've ever tasted. It's rejuvenating and uplifting, especially after my workouts. So friends, imagine starting your day with something that tastes great and gives you the energy you need to feel your best. This is Advanced Greens Plus. It's more than just a greens drink. It's a way to get back the energy that you felt was slipping away. And it actually tastes great. So if you're ready for a breakthrough in healthy aging, I would love for you to go to PeggyAgeFix.com. I'll have a link for you in the description box below. And I would love for you to watch this video to discover Advanced Greens Plus, because now is the time to support your wellness without dreading the taste. All right. Thank you to Advanced Greens Plus. Friends, we are going to dive into this just announced Kennedy appointment by Trump to as Secretary to Health and Human Services. And let me know if you are applauding this, if you are dreading this, if you could care less about this. So many in my audience are actually huge RFK Jr. fans. And I think now we really are going to see him be put to the test, because it's no more about past videos and past comments and old tweets and all of that. And let's see if he's going to step up to the plate and do what he has promised to do. Now, I've spoken on this channel before. In fact, I just did a video yesterday where I had a few concerns about this Make America Healthy initiative, because no government can make you healthy. And I reject that narrative that the government should be involved in my health choices. However, please keep listening, because some of y'all aren't going to keep listening after I stated that. There are areas that I do believe the government plays a role, such as cleaning the air, getting those chemtrails stopped. Of course, getting fluoride out of the water. Now, listen, that is not a national issue. That is a local water issue. You can live in a state where in one county there's fluoride and in another county there isn't. So I don't believe that the federal government has authority in local water issues, and I don't think they should. I'm not in favor of expanding the federal government. I'm in favor of shrinking of it. I'm in favor of shrinking it. I would love to see the FDA be done away with, and the CDC, and the EPA, and the Department of Education for that matter, although that's not under Health and Human Services. So I would like to, actually, I'm going to save those comments for the end of the video, because what I promised to do was to start right out with Trump's tweet in terms of his announcement. In fact, I saw this on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Twitter page, and let me just share that with you. Let me know if you already are savvy as to this announcement. So this comes from Donald Trump, and Kennedy reposted it. And it says, "I'm thrilled to announce Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services." Now, remember, this has to be confirmed by the Senate, but they are working on a runaround. I guess that's one way of saying it. And of course, there is now, or there will be once Trump takes office, a majority of Republicans in the Senate. Trump says, "For too long, Americans have been crushed by the industrial food complex and drug companies who have engaged in deception, misinformation, and disinformation when it comes to public health." All right, I take issue with the phrase public health. There's only individual health. I agree that there's public sanitation and there are public safety issues, but your health is individual. I reject the concept of public health as we experienced over the last several years. The safety and health of all Americans is the most important role of any administration. I'm going to reject that statement as well. No, I don't think the government has anything to do with our health at all. He goes on to say, HHS will play a big role in helping ensure that everybody will be protected from harmful chemicals, pollutants, pesticides. I'm in favor of that. Pharmaceutical products and food additives. I draw the line with that, friends, and I'm going to tell you why, that have contributed to the overwhelming health crisis in this country. Mr. Kennedy will restore these agencies to the traditions of gold standard scientific research and beacons of transparency. Oh yeah, I bet that's going to happen, to end the chronic disease epidemic and to make America great and healthy again. All right, I'm going to poke holes in this ship, friends, because that's what I do. I said ship, like a sailing ship. Yes. All right, I reject the notion of public health. I don't like that narrative. I don't like it being pushed. I am in favor of public sanitation. I think that our ocean water should be clean. I think our drinking water should be clean. I don't want to see hypodermic needles in the restrooms, that kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. That affects us in the public realm. But your health is your responsibility. It's not even your doctor's responsibility. So I don't like this push for expanding the government's involvement in our public health. Let's go on with the statement, and I'd like to hear from you as well. He says that the Americans have been crushed by the industrial food complex. All right. Again, to me, it takes away our own individual choices to consider that we were crushed by this complex. I think you have the right and the ability to choose the kinds of foods that you want to eat. Now, I do agree that getting rid of GMO, for example, genetically modified food, or sneaking it in should be banned, or at least should be labeled. There are so many products now that will say on the label, this was created with genetically engineered foods like wheat or sugar and other things. So that absolutely, let's applaud, let's give a standing ovation, let's get rid of these bioengineered foods, the genetically modified foods. I say yes, in my opinion, because that is not natural. Let's be done with that, or at least have labels. So I could be in favor of that, but I'm also in favor of individual liberty. So if a company wants to make a product made with all bioengineered foods, I really believe they should have the right to do that. And you have a right to eat it or not eat it. That's the individual choice. I don't want the government making choices for what I'm going to eat and what I'm not going to eat. I've done videos on this channel about Bill Gates' appeal, which is that waxy coating that goes on fruits and vegetables. Again, it's a free market. They want to make it, go make it. But we need to be educated and alerted and informed if that is on our food. And then we can make a choice as to whether to eat it or not. Now, I know someone who never bought any organic food. In fact, she scoffed at it. I'm not going to pay more money for those organic apples, and I'm going to buy the regular ones. I don't even think it was the money, but it was her own way of kind of pushing back against what she thought was another kind of ruse of organic food. I'm not saying organic food is a ruse, although I have heard from people that work in grocery stores that might tell me differently. But it was her way of saying, I don't want the organic, I want the conventional. And I think we should have that choice. That is the freedom of choice. People can choose to sit home and watch Netflix all day. That's their choice. I'm not saying it's a good choice, but it's their choice. They have the ability to smoke. They have the right to smoke, to drink, to eat Doritos and junk food and go through all the fast food restaurants. That's their choice. The government should not play a role in it, in my opinion. And the reason why is, where do you draw the line? That's why I want to clarify my comments about the GMOs and all of that. I think we need to be informed of that. I definitely want to have crops that are protected from that. So there likely would be a lot of specific steps and everything that would be taken. But the general gist that I'm getting at is, I don't want the government involved in my food choices at all. If I want to eat Fruit Loops, I want all those food additives, things and artificial flavors and all of that. I don't think the companies should be restricted from doing that. They should inform us, and we have the right to choose or not to choose. What's next? They're going to shut down all the fast food restaurants? They tried this years ago, like over 10 years ago in New York, where they wanted to limit the size of the big gulp or whatever that you could get. I'm not in favor of the government limiting my food choices, period. So I think I made that point quite strongly. All right, I'm going on with the tweet here. He says, Trump says, the safety and health of all Americans is the most important role of any administration. I disagree. Protecting our rights is the most important role of any administration. Upholding the law is the most important role of any administration. Not lying is the most important role of any administration. There are many important roles. And I do believe that the safety of our country, for example, if we have foreign threats, and we know there are also domestic threats. You and I might be on that list of domestic threats because we stand for freedom. But no, I am not in favor of the statement that the safety and health of all Americans is the most important role of any administration. Friends, even my Bobby Kennedy supporters, do you agree with that statement? That's kind of what got us into the fix that we were in over the last several years. Trump goes on to say, HHS will play a big role in helping ensure that everybody will be protected. I hope that doesn't include being protected, if this is one means of protection that Trump promoted, ensure that everybody will be protected from harmful chemicals, pollutants. I agree with that, especially in the sky. Pesticides, yes. Pharmaceutical products, yes. And food additives, I really don't feel that strongly about the government telling companies what they can put in their food. It's up to you to be an educated consumer to determine whether or not you want to eat that. It just expands the government. It expands the FDA. I'm not in favor of that. Trump goes on to say, the chemicals, pollutants, pesticides, and pharmaceutical products and food additives have contributed to the overwhelming health crisis in this country. I don't think it's the government's job. And I don't know that we are in a health crisis. I need to dig deeper into that as well. All of my friends and family, people I know, they're in excellent health. The only people that are having problems with their health that I know are those that participated under duress, under pressure, and many of them with second thoughts now, wishing they had done things differently, participating in the cocktails. Most people I know are healthy. And if they don't want to be healthy, the government's going to make them be healthy. So I just don't see that. He goes on to say, Kennedy will restore these agencies to the traditions of the gold standard scientific research. Restore them? You mean there was a gold standard scientific research? Again, all this, like science is the religion here. He will restore these agencies as beacons of transparency. To restore means to make it like it was. You're telling me that the FDA and the CDC were beacons of transparency. I would like to see evidence of that. And then he goes on to say, we want to end the chronic disease epidemic and make America great and healthy again. I don't believe it's the government's role, certainly not the federal government's role, to be involved in that at all. Now, I'm going to share with you I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at some of the comments, which I thought were amusing. All right, here we go. And we've got Nicole Shanahan, who was Kennedy's nominee for vice president, says, thank you, President Trump. And then there he is. Somebody says, here we go. Maha, please don't let him take away our Uncrustables. That's like taking away the Fruit Loops. Someone says, thank you, sir. It's great to have JFK's son and a licensed physician in this role. I do not understand that comment unless it's being snarky, because he is not JFK's son and he's not a licensed physician. Trump has now delivered us more upgrades than Apple and Android engineers combined, meaning this was the individual that was in Biden's cabinet. It's a bad day to be a seed oil. You see, I draw the line on that. If people want to have the seed oils, they should have a right to have them. I'm not in favor of the government expanding their regulation of our food. Big pharma right now, okay, I think there could be definitely something to benefit there. So here we go. Now I wanted to look at okay, there you have it. So the next thing I wanted to look at was how the cabinet positions are actually approved by the Senate. Because remember, this is a nomination. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about how this works. And what I'm going to do is share with you an article from a website called rollcall.com. The GOP considers handing Trump a path around Senate confirmations. Restarting the use of recess appointments would be an enormous power grab. So it says incoming Senate Republican leadership has flirted with handing over a significant portion of its power to allow President-elect Donald Trump a chance to avoid the Senate's confirmation process entirely to staff up the administration in his second term. So ahead of Wednesday's leadership elections, Trump and his allies have pushed the candidates to potentially allow recess appointments to his cabinet and other positions, which experts say would cause a major shift away from the Senate's constitutional advise and consent role. So the Constitution's recess appointments, that's a power that allows the president, an incoming president or any president, to make a temporary appointment to a position that would normally require Senate confirmation while the Senate is in recess. So the Senate is going to be in recess, and these recess appointments would last until the end of the upcoming session of Congress. In this case, would be 2026. So think about this. In order for a nominee, in this case, Trump, to be confirmed by the Senate, I'll talk about that in just a moment, how the Senate confirmation process normally works. But what is being considered is the Senate going into recess so that these appointments can be made, and kind of doing a runaround or an end game runaround, however the expression goes. So for nearly 2 decades under bipartisan leadership, the Senate has avoided going into recess to prevent access to these recess appointments. The pressure campaign to change that started with Trump on Sunday, ahead of the GOP Senate race to succeed outgoing Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Now the candidates are jockeying for position, this article states from Roll Call. Any Republican senator seeking the coveted leadership position in the United States Senate must agree to recess appointments in the Senate, without which we would not be able to get the people confirmed in a timely manner, Trump posted on Twitter I refuse to call it X. I just don't like that. I'm calling it Twitter. Sometimes the votes can take 2 years or more. This is what they did 4 years ago, and we cannot let it happen again. We need positions filled immediately. So what do you think is going to happen, friends? Do you think that the Senate will go into recess so that these appointments can be made and these appointees, such as RFK Jr., can be in place through the end of 2026? And that would be one way of doing it. Otherwise, but think about it. If the Republicans have the majority in the Senate, do you think that they would really play hardball with these appointments? Well, Kennedy was not, and to my knowledge, is not a Republican. And there may be some that would object to that appointment, for example. I'm not talking about the other cabinet positions right now. I am aware of them. I might cover that. Let me know in a comment if you'd like me to cover that in an upcoming video. Without the use of these recess appointments at the beginning of Trump's first term in 2017, the Senate confirmed the Homeland Security and Defense Secretaries on January 20th, and the Attorney General on February 8th, and the rest of the cabinet by April. Now, the Republicans did control the Senate all 4 years of Trump's first term, and they made a rule change in 2019 to allow nominees to be confirmed with as little as 2 hours of floor debate. How do you like them apples? They'll change the rules to suit their desires. Only a handful of Trump's nominees did not advance in his first term, most of whom withdrew over their stated concerns about their ability to unwind their private holdings in order to meet government ethics standards. That's very interesting. So Trump and his allies, including billionaire Elon Musk, and you know how I feel about Elon, have backed the idea of allowing recess appointments as they gear up for the new administration. So this would be a sea change, according to Josh Hutter of, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Hutter, of the Government Affairs Institute at George Washington University. It's an enormous power grab is what Trump is trying to do, allowing the executive to circumvent the Senate-confirmed positions, he stated. It's a big deal in terms of the separation of powers, allowing the president to go around the Senate. Now, Florida Republican Senator Rick Scott is a candidate for the majority leader in the Senate, most openly embraced Trump's push for recess appointments over the weekend. He says, I 100% agree. I will do whatever it takes, Trump, to get your nominations through as quickly as possible. All right, so that's basically what the game plan is. But let's talk about how the Senate normally would confirm these appointments. So the president, remember, he's the executive. He does not have the authority to make law, which is why I am completely opposed to these executive orders. Think about the name. An executive order should only apply to the executive branch of government, meaning in order to carry out the laws that were already passed by the Senate and the Congress, our federal government, the legislature, they have the power to pass bills. The president will sign the bill into law, and then he is the executor, the executive. He is supposed to carry out those laws through these different cabinet positions and different departments and agencies in the executive branch of government. Executive orders are not designed to just be like a king's decree. Sadly, so many presidents and governors and mayors have taken it upon themselves to act like these rulers, these authoritarian rulers, and just making up these rules as they go along. So we have a separation of powers, and the Senate is required to approve the president's nominees for these cabinet positions and other agencies and other positions. So this now comes from, of all places, the Miami Herald. I thought it was a nice write-up, and it says, ahead of his inauguration in January, President-elect Donald Trump has begun assembling his cabinet and other key members of his administration. So far, he's announced about half a dozen cabinet picks, including Florida Senator Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. Let me just pause for a moment. Now, if he's going to be if Trump's going to be plucking all of these members of the Senate and the House, I mean, that kind of makes me uneasy as well, because now those positions need to be filled. So that could have a change up in some, some of these could go to the other party as well. So Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, and Fox News host, interesting, Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. I don't know that man's background, but wow, that's quite an appointment. And Florida Representative Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. That's interesting as well. Trump has also tapped South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. All y'all that are in South Dakota, what do you think about your governor being taken away from you? I mean, these are real consequences to these actions. Is there going to be a more liberal governor now in South Dakota, or maybe kind of a midstream governor there? What's going to happen to the state of Dakota? I'm curious. She's nominated for Homeland Security Secretary. I find this very interesting and intriguing, and I'm not quite following Trump's logic there. And blah, 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 a few others. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about RFK. So how the Senate confirmation works is the other topic. The U.S. Constitution stipulates that the Senate must approve a number of presidential appointments, including ambassadors and Supreme Court justices. All of the cabinet officers, except for the vice president, are considered principal officers under the Constitution, which means they require the consent of the Senate, says Josh Chaffetz, professor of law and politics at Georgetown University Law Center. The Senate, according to longstanding practice, begins a nominee's confirmation process by holding a hearing. A hearing is held in the committee that has the jurisdiction over the department in which the nominee has been nominated. So, for example, in 2021, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee held a confirmation hearing for Anthony Blinken. Yeah, we know how that turned out. He was appointed, but I would say he was quite a disappointment in the role. And Biden's pick for he was the Secretary of State pick by Biden. At the same time, the Senate Finance Committee held a hearing for Janet Yellen. And she was the nominee and became the Secretary of the Treasury. So in these hearings, which can last for hours, the committee members are given the opportunity to question the nominee about their background and their policy positions. And the nominees are asked to fill out financial disclosure forms, and not everyone is interested in doing that. And they then are going to be subject to background investigations. And this process culminates in a vote by that committee, followed by a Senate-wide vote. A simple majority of senators present at the time. How do you like them apples? I think it should be all of them. A simple majority of senators present at the time of the vote is necessary to approve the nominee. Throughout history, just a small number of cabinet picks have been voted down by the Senate. The number is so small because most nominees would probably withdraw from consideration before they are denied. So thinking about Trump's first term, several of his nominees did withdraw their nomination because they didn't want to be subject to maybe the financial disclosure forms. They didn't want to be nitpicked about their background and their qualifications. And maybe they didn't want to undergo a background check. I can't speak for them, but these are all of the things that they removed themselves from having to do. So Trump wrote on Truth Social. Let me know if you follow that. I'm not on Truth Social. I'm hardly on social media. I don't consider YouTube social media. It's video sharing platform more for education and information. But on Truth Social, Trump wrote, "We need positions filled immediately!" Exclamation point. A little bit of an alarmist view in my perspective. So there you have it, friends. The big news, I think it's huge news. I actually was caught by surprise. I did not think that Kennedy was going to be nominated to the position of Secretary of Health and Human Services. I would like to know what you think is going to happen. And I really am going to keep an eagle eye on whether or not there is going to be another outbreak of a contagious disease, and if there is going to be a warp speed plan in place to fast track the cocktails, which Kennedy is on record saying that he's fiercely pro-vaccine and that he only wants them to be safer. Therefore, he wants to expand safety testing of these vaccines, especially the childhood vaccines, which would mean more people injected, more children injected. And I, for one, am not in favor of that. I am going to keep an open mind. That is what we do here at the Healthy American. We want to gather evidence. We want to consider different perspectives. And I'm actually very excited to see what is going to be coming forth. I certainly am glad that it did not go to Kamala Harris, and who knows who she would have put in charge of that. So let's think about shrinking the federal government, eliminating some of these agencies, getting the federal government's nose out of our business, out of our food choices, and shutting down or certainly throttling the FDA so they don't have so much power over us, including and shutting down or severely limiting the CDC as well. Public health, in my opinion, is individual health, and it's not the government's business. What say you? Thanks, friends, for being on board for a rollicking ride. You know, I'll have my comments in a written form on my Substack. And if you have upgraded to a paid subscription over at peggyhall.substack.com, you are invited to join us every month for our live private webinar, uncensored. I have all sorts of amazing guests. Our next one is going to be December 7th, and I've got Heather Martinson coming on. It's going to be a very encouraging, positive interaction, and I would love to have you join us there. So anyone who sent a check or is a paid subscriber to Substack or peggyhall.tv, you are invited to join us. All right, friends, signing off for now. I want to thank you for your support. I love our Healthy American community, and that's the kind of community I'm in favor of building. All right, see you soon, everybody.